And now we're back with another countdown about boss battles. 2.5 years ago, I made a list of what I thought were the top 10 most annoying video game bosses. But ever since then, I faced so many annoying bosses that I just had to remake my list. And also, there were some bosses I missed. Now keep this in mind. I don't hate them for being challenging. There are some bosses that are hard without being annoying, and some bosses that are annoying without being hard. So here we go. Bosses from Okami and Okami didn't tend to be really awesome, but there is one fight that I really don't like. While some people like Josh Scorcher will probably think of Orochi because of how you have to fight him a third time, I'd have to go with Renjishi from Okami did. The first phase plays pretty well, but there is a cutscene that shows you the order you need to hit the weak spots, which isn't too long, but in the next phase, since you now have to memorize one with more weak spots, it gets longer and more anger-inducing. But the real annoyance is when he kidnaps Kagu. When he kidnaps Kagu, you can no longer attack his weak spots. And we still have to sit through that patience trying cutscene even though we can't hit his weak spots without Kagu. If we can't hit his weak spots, what's the point of showing me this redundant cutscene? I mean, the weak spots were set anyways after you rescue her. And you know what else? If you don't hit all of his weak spots in time, he restores health. And you know what that means? More long cutscene watching! The last phase of this fight isn't too bad, though. Big Bungee Piranha is so annoying that even after Kamek blabs out his weak spot, he's still difficult. Basically, when he locks his cursor on the ground, you have to push the boulder underneath him so that he can break his teeth on it. Then you have to shoot his tongue. The first time, he's slow, making it easier. The second time, he gets a bit faster. But it's really hard to get the last blow on him because he dives down way too fast! I think a more fitting name for this guy would be Pesky Piranha. The only reason the Trash Monster from Toy Story 2 for the PlayStation wasn't on my original list is because I was so overprotective about copyright that I thought that even if I showed footage from license-based games, my account would get terminated. This boss's insane difficulty spike made me lose my sanity when I was a kid. And while 12 bosses have surpassed it, this boss still brings back terrible memories. In order to even give damage to this boss, you have to keep shooting it to make it sink into its trash can. But this boss jumps a lot, and every time it jumps, it raises a bit higher out of the trash can, making you have to shoot it more. I dare you to kill him and end up without your hands getting tired. And one of the most annoying aspects is that if you're not careful, it'll get to the point where he will keep hitting you against the wall. There are two things that keep it from being higher. The first is that he's not necessarily a hard boss if you're a good button masher, at least until you try to get the fourth hit on him, where he's big trouble unless you're as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog. But he's on here because of all the agony he gave me when I was a kid. The other thing that keeps it from being higher on the list is once you actually do manage to deliver the fourth hit, he drops a green laser which you can collect and then spam it against the boss and completely own it, making it all the more satisfying. Now that's what I call taking out the trash. What? I couldn't resist making that pun. The giant Fleabot is easily the toughest boss in Nicktoons Unite. It's already aggravating enough that you have to go through the longest and most painful level in the whole game to even reach him, but to add fuel to the fire, he can send shockwaves across the screen to keep you from reaching him, and he can jump high to avoid half of your attacks. And sometimes he'll even resort to getting on his perch, and when he does that, he recovers some of the damage that you gave him. The only way to get him down is to get up to the eardrum and hit it to make the Fleabot come down. But while he does this, he leaves you with some of his minions, so you'll have a choice to make. Protect your allies and watch the Fleabot restore even more health, or get up on the eardrum and leave your other characters open to danger. And because all of your characters share lives, it doesn't matter if you can dodge all of his attacks, because your characters will also get hit by them. You better finish this guy off fast or you're a goner. And considering that the final boss you face right after him is a complete joke, that makes this boss look even harder in comparison. At least you can whittle his health down faster with Timmy's Star Shooter attack, but that doesn't keep him from being a very tough boss. There are some very important lessons to be learned in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. One of the most important rules in the game is that whatever you do not knock a polar bear's popsicle into a pond of piranhas. Otherwise, you'll be sorry, and I mean very, very sorry. The fight with Bash Monster the Unbreakable is so cheap. It starts out very easy, but as the fight goes on, it gets much cheaper. He starts kicking ice blocks at you to try to push you into the water to cause damage to you. This gets even worse in the second half of the battle, with ice block stacks that are 3 blocks high will fall down, and you'll have to jump over them or else he'll ram you. You can jump over them if you get a boost from the 2-block stacks. Dixie Kong is your best friend in this fight, if you can hold on to her. Later, he'll even resort to making stacks of 4 ice blocks to push you into the pond. Plus, they also act as shields for him if you're trying to throw a bomb at him. Oh, and he can also create shockwaves and use a super fast ice hammer attack. You better not miss him or else you will have to avoid another rally of attacks. I'm not gonna say this fight is bad per se. I mean, he does have a cool fighting style, but the fight is just so teeth grinding. If there's one vital thing you need to take into account in any Pikmin game, is the fact that you need to make sure you don't kill off all your Pikmin or else you'll face Pikmin extinction. If Pikmin were to go extinct, I wouldn't be all that surprised if the sand-belching Mirror Slug from Pikmin 3 was the cause. You will lose a lot of Pikmin in this fight. In this boss fight, he attacks by shooting big sand clumps that drive your Pikmin to the ground. Then, he digs underground and tries to suck up your buried Pikmin. Don't bother trying to pluck them out when he's doing this, because you'll only end up losing more Pikmin. Yes, there's the option to leave some of your Pikmin behind when you go to rescue them, but even so, they might get sucked in even if they're left behind. You can throw in more Pikmin to drive him out of the ground and get an easier hit on him, but at the risk of losing more Pikmin. Every time the day ends, you'll really need to think about renewing your Pikmin. At least he'll still have as much health he did when he left off when the day ends, which will give you plenty of time to renew your Pikmin. The Yellow Devil is the bane of every Mega Man fan's existence. We all know how it launches itself across the screen and makes you have to jump over all of its pieces. The second ones from the bottom are easily the most annoying to dodge, because not only do you have to jump over them, but you have to time your jumps perfectly. Capcom, this would be a good time to introduce the slide ability. But unfortunately, even though this would have been the most vital time to use it, that ability didn't exist yet. If you get game over, or should I say, when you get game over, it's all the way back to the beginning of the hardest level in the game. Thank you for adding insult to injury, Capcom. The Imprisoned from Skyward Sword. Yeah, as if I haven't complained about this game already. This is arguably one of my biggest complaints in the game. The first time you fight him, it's absolutely pathetic. But the second time you fight him is absolute murder. The fight has a time limit just like your previous encounter with him, and you have to defeat him before he gets to the top of the hill. But now he's grown arms, so if you don't slice his fingers, which you have to wait until the perfect time for him to lower his fingers to reach, or at least use the Gruesinator to hit his fingers, he will be able to climb up a whole level unless you use the Gruesinator to stop him. But that's not my beef with this boss. To beat him, you have to slice his toes so you can knock him over and jab the stone thing into his head. But you can only hit his toes when his feet are on the ground, and when his feet hit the ground, they generate shockwaves which trip you up. Even when, or I mean if, you manage to knock him over, he's so big that it's hard to make your way around him unless you use the wind geysers to get around him, but you have to go to the correct one. I know some of you are thinking that you can really just jump on his head and slice the stone thing into his head. Okay, first off, I didn't even know it was possible to jump on him when I played the game. Second off, that's pretty much taking the easy way out. Otherwise, this boss will give you some very rough times. The third fight may start out worse, but at least the fact you can launch yourself onto him makes up for it. Final Fantasy IV is definitely an awesome game, and much better than Final Fantasy III on the DS, but if there's one thing that messed me up a lot, it's the fact that enemies can attack even when it's not their turn, so you no longer have time to think of a good strategy. This is especially shown in the fight with Basaran. The preceding cutscene teases you into thinking you're getting a new party member, only for you to find out that he's still being controlled by Gobez. We have the boss itself, but also has two arms that can also act as targets, letting this boss attack rapidly, and he can cast a fast spell on himself to make him temporarily faster, as if he didn't attack rapidly enough. Because of this boss, you won't have time to restore your magic, you won't have time to see if you're casting the right spell or not, you won't even have time to think about what character you're using or not. And don't waste magic attacking his arms because they regenerate instantly. And his attacks are super powerful, so you have to take even more time out of what you could have used to attack him to revive more of your fallen characters. And even if you try to use Palom and Poron's powerful magic duets, Basaran will likely kill one of them, cancelling out the spell. Pop quiz. Imagine yourself playing an RPG game. You're about to enter the final level in the game. What would be the most logical thing to do? Stock up on a lot of items. This normally works, but in Paper Mario Sticker Star, if you decide on this, your plan will backfire instantly because once you walk in, you are greeted with Kamek. And just like the first fight with him, during the fight, he turns all of your stickers into sandals. Don't worry, the stickers return to normal after you beat him. But that's not the point. In this game, stickers represent your commands when it comes to attacking and healing, so once you use up the sticker, it will disappear. He'll make you have to use them up without knowing which one is which. You better remember where your power stickers were, because you might waste a lot of them without even knowing it. Because of Kamek, you'll very likely lose all of your stickers during the final battle, especially since you spent a lot of money for them. What, did Bowser plan ahead or something? Could this mean Bowser's actually thinking logically for once? What was Square Enix smoking when they created Ruler of the Sky, also known as the worst boss in the entire franchise? Seriously, this boss is a complete coward. He constantly flies away from you, making it so hard to hit him, and when you actually do manage to catch up with him, your attacks barely give any damage whatsoever because he has insane defenses. And every time you destroy a section of his tail, he flies at you repeatedly, making it difficult to dodge. Thankfully, the second half of the fight isn't nearly as annoying because he at least stops sometimes, but his constant flying still makes it hard to hit. And the worst part is the fact that there's actually a challenge mission for least amount of times you swung your Keyblade. Yeah! A lot of people in the Countdown community have a popular game that they hate. Josh Scorcher hates Mario Galaxy 2. Animal Guy hates Generation 1. Super Flipper wasn't very big on Conker's Bad Fur Day. For me, that game would be Shadow of the Colossus, because everyone regards it as one of the best games ever created. I'm not one of those people. I don't think the game is bad or anything. I can see why people like it, and I do like its emotional impact, but it has what I personally feel to be some of the most repetitive gameplay in any game I've ever played, especially in the fight with Celosia. To kill this boss, the fight involves you having to light a stick on fire and use it to scare him to the ground to make his armor fall off. But this game's combat system is so mediocre that once you get headbutted by him, you get stunned, and it takes 5 seconds to get back up, which is how long it takes for him to ready his headbutt attack. So he'll take advantage of this by spamming this attack to repeatedly ram you against the wall because of how crammed the area where you fight him is. Oh, did I mention how atrocious the camera angle is? Even when you knock his armor off and begin the second phase, he'll still repeatedly knock you against the wall until you die. The only reason he's not number 1 is because if you actually do manage to land on his back, the battle might as well just end there. Good news, Mother Brain. You're off the hook for once. You know why? Because now I hate to fight with Boost Guardian even more. When fighting him on normal mode, he's already inexcusable, but when we face him on veteran mode, we get something that I will never forgive Retro Studios for doing. One of the worst parts of this boss fight is actually one of the mechanics in this game. On Dark Aether, you constantly lose health unless you're in a light force field. But there are no light force fields in this boss fight, so you're constantly losing health in this boss fight. Yes, you can kill some of the enemies to restore health, but not by much. What really makes this boss a pain is when he curls into a ball, making him completely invincible, and he keeps zigzagging around the room, making dodging a frustration. Sometimes the only way to turn him into a puddle to get him back to his normal mode is if you place a bomb perfectly, because you're going to take a load of damage from his boost attack. He can crash into some of the pillars to make an 100% recovery item appear, but that won't stop you from losing. This boss has killed me off more than any boss I've ever faced, making him the new hardest boss I've faced. And I wouldn't mind that, but the fact that a boss isn't even important in the story is the hardest boss I've faced makes me hate him with a burning passion. This boss is now officially my #1 worst boss I've faced. But just because he's the worst boss I've faced, doesn't mean he's the most annoying boss. There are two more. The Egg Saucer from Sonic Advance 2. This boss was very, and I mean very, close to making the #1 spot on this list. I mean, the amount of times I've literally smacked my head every time I lost to this fight is just implausible. You fight this boss in running motion, but in this battle, this makes the fight more frustrating to even get one hit on him. This boss is armed with a laser which takes a few hits to destroy, but even if you're staying far away from him where the boss can't physically attack you, the laser can still force you to keep dodging. Even when you destroy it, it's still the matter of the worst part of this boss. The bane of this entire game is that giant extendable hand. This thing will try to slap you away when you try to hit the boss or the laser, and sometimes when it hits you, it gives normal damage, but other times it kills you instantly even if you have rings on you. What the heck is this? A required non-final boss with a hard to avoid one-hit KO move? Why? And because the same attack that killed you instantly has a chance of giving normal damage, it'll be impossible for you to guess if the attack will either just smack you away or kill you. And you can't even kill the extendable hand. This boss isn't as bad when facing him as Cream, because she can pretty much just spam Omochao at this boss until it dies, but when facing him with other characters, it's really annoying. At least when fighting him with Tails, he can fly, Knuckles can punch Eggman for an easy hit, and I haven't unlocked Amy yet because of the absurd requirements to getting her, but she could probably get an easy hit on Eggman with her hammer. When facing this boss as Sonic, however, this boss is just the worst because your attacks on Eggman have to be the perfect position. What's worse is that you face him at the end of the Sky Canyon, which is the hardest level in the game. And once you die, you'd assume that like in the first game you only have to start from Act 2, but that's not the case. Instead, you have to start from Act 1. And to think, there is actually a boss that's even more aggravating than this fight. Alright, let's do the usual and recap the list. Number 15, Renjishi. Number 14, Pesky Piranha. Number 13, the Trash Monster. Number 12, Giant Fleabot. Number 11, Bassmaster the Unbreakable. Number 10, the living definition of Pigment Genocide. Number 9, the Yellow Devil. Number 8, the Imprisoned. Number 7, Baigen. Number 6, Kamek. Number 5, come back here, you coward! Number 4, Celosia. Number 3, Boost Guardian. And number 2, Egg Saucer. Want to know another reason why I felt that Generation 2 is the weakest in the series? Well, because aside from Whitney and that blasted milk tank, there is one thing that is much worse than that. My reason is because this generation put a curse on the Pokemon franchise for every future main series game to have so far. One of the worst things in the series, roaming legendaries. Roaming legendaries are easily the most annoying legendaries to capture. Finding them for the first time is an absolute chore because you have to keep searching in random places for them because they're not even registered in your Pokédex yet. But even when you do encounter them for the first time, you better not have used the Master Ball up because they're your best bet for capturing them because on the first turn, they run away! Why? And to top it all off, Once you fail to capture them, they go to a random area on the map. They don't even follow a certain pattern, so how are you supposed to know where to encounter them next? This is especially bad in Gold and Silver, where you have to capture 3 roaming legendaries. Meaning that since you only get 1 Master Ball unless you want to waste your life trading with every single person you encounter on the street to win the Pokemon lottery ticket, you're going to have to capture 2 of the roaming legendaries the hard way. And using Mean Look on them in Generation 2 won't do you any good because once you use it, they use Roar to end the battle. They only show up when you least expect them, which means they'll either chicken out and keep changing routes when you're ready for them, or finally decide to fight you when you're not ready for them. Game Freak, why did you do this to us? I know what you're thinking. It's supposed to be a challenge. This isn't a challenge. Challenges are supposed to be skill-based, not luck-based. The only time this is actually fun is tracking down Tornadus and Thunderous, since they only go around certain parts of Western Unova, depending on the time of the day, and at least there's a storm to tell you if you're in the right place or not. You see, Game Freak, this is how you handle the roaming mechanic. But in every other game this happens, it's still frustrating. In Pokemon X and Y, they still had this feature, and they thought they made it better. They didn't. They made it even worse. Now the instant you encounter them, you don't even get the chance to throw the Master Ball to capture them, because before you even get the option to do anything, they run away instantly. Why? Yes, they made it so if you encounter them enough, they stay in place. But only if you have the patience to track them down 11 times. As if only one time wasn't horrible enough. And they still change locations every time you go to another town or route. They should have kept it the way it was in Black and White. But easily the worst time you have to do it is in Pokemon Crystal. Suicune may not be as horrible to find anymore since you can face it at the bottom of the Tin Tower, but now you have to capture Raikou and Entei in order to capture the rest of the Tin Tower to catch Ho-Oh. Game Freak, there is no excuse for having to do this. Some of you will probably think you can trade from another game, but that doesn't count. The roaming legendary was the most unnecessary mechanic in Pokemon history. That is why they are number 1 on the list. I am Meta527 the second, and Game Freak, if you decide to make Generation 7 someday, do me a big favor and either make the roaming mechanic like it was in Generation 5, or take out the roaming feature for good.